Everyone. Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. I haven't done anything like a LinkedIn course before, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting stuck in. There's so much to be gained from putting more time and energy and into LinkedIn. So I'm really excited about this one. Apologies if you mentioned Dave, but I believe we're going to do about 20 to 30 minutes of me talking at you. And then we're going to open the floor up, hopefully, to about the same amount of time of questions, because there will be lots of those, no doubt, and hopefully. So yeah, just very briefly, I'm Joe, co-founder of One Planet Pizza. Founded it back in 2016 with my dad, Mike, who's Dave's business partner. And we really wanted to build the world's most sustainable, tastiest and biggest vegan pizza brand, and that's what we set out to do. So we've been going fairly strong, a bit of a roller coaster ride, but we're now currently sold in Asda and Morrison's, and I'm going after the other major retailers with our range of out of this world pizzas next year. So that's my sales pitch over, but it's probably important for you guys to know that once we get started. So I guess, how is that relevant, and how does LinkedIn tie into our story? So about 2 to 3 years ago, I was already on LinkedIn, but I was one of probably majority of people who are on it, but they know they should be doing more with it, which is probably the main thing I get told all the time. And someone said to me, you've got a great story, a brilliant brand, lots to shout about. You're not utilizing LinkedIn as a free tool to reach buyers, to reach customers, and to build, ultimately, to build your company. And so that's when I started looking into it, doing some research, spending more time on it, and it became a bit of a healthy obsession. And since then, I've actually managed to grow my profile at quite an extraordinary rate. Really surprised myself. For example, last year I reached over a million people. And I've since grown my profile to over 15,000 followers. I'm hoping to hit 20,000 early next year. I've done a couple of posts in the last few months alone where I've reached upwards of 50,000 people. And we're based here in Norfolk, and our local football stadium, Harrow Road, holds about 25,000 people. So when you post something and reach 50,000 people, and it's 2 full football stadiums, it just shows you the scale and the huge opportunity within LinkedIn as a resource for your business or your services. So I guess that's the background from me. I didn't want to spend too much time on that, but I thought it was really relevant before we get stuck in. So I've done a few courses with the LinkedIn team over the last year. And so I'll be cherry picking some of my favorite learnings from their team. But really, a lot of what I'm going to talk about is stuff that I've learned firsthand myself, building up a profile, spending more time on it, and yeah, basically talking to other people who are equally fascinated by the power of LinkedIn. So yeah, I will jump straight in. I'm going to break this first half up into 3 sections, and yeah, feel free to take notes. I can share information afterwards, but we'll jump into the questions in the second half. So to kick off, I guess the basics. Now, I'm not going to ask for too much audience participation here, because I know it can be quite complicated on these calls. But am I allowed to ask questions, Dave? Okay, cool. Who here's got a photo in their profile? It sounds like a very obvious question, but I'm surprised by how many people haven't got a photo. So I'll put a hand up, will do. Excellent, full mark. So yeah, the reason I ask is that when I did my LinkedIn training, they said that you'll get 9 times more connections, requests, and up to 21 times more profile views with a decent profile picture. And by decent, I mean, fairly good quality. It's always powerful to have a smile. You don't want it to look like a passport photo. And if you can get a little bit of personality in there, then that's, I think, a huge advantage. So, for example, my profile picture, I've got a bit of branding. I'm holding a lovely cooked pizza on a wooden tray, and I'm at an event. and I'm moving across the camera. So it sounds it's a bit obvious, but you know, a fun, engaging profile picture where you look like you're clearly having fun doing what you do is going to make a huge impact, and it's probably one of the first things people will see. So next question, you've got full marks so far. Who has a background or banner active on their current profile? Hands up. Oh, we've got a few. Okay, got a few hands down here. Does anyone understand or not understand what I mean?
You mean behind the picture?
That's right. Yeah, that's the one. So yeah, that's your banner on your profile. So I think a few people didn't have that, which was really interesting. So this I would consider probably, you know, one of the top 3 most important parts of your profile. It's a great chance to get a bit more information across. So again, it's one of the first things people will see when they come to your profile. You get a lot more space than your profile picture. So I'd recommend putting a nice headshot on your profile for your photo, but on your background, typically businesses tend to get a bit more about the company they work for, the services, or for us, it's an opportunity to get the packaging in the background there and a bit of branding. So I recommend you do that. That's one of the first things I would do. Makes a massive difference to your profile, and it helps make it much more punchy and unique. Okay, next question. I'm not going to shame anyone too much. Does everyone understand what the profile headline is? Hands up if you know what I'm talking about by your profile headline. Okay, we've got a few nods. Dave's hands went straight up. So this is the short sentence that accompanies your profile and sits below your name. So people will see this when they're scrolling or searching for you or when you're posting. And it's one short sentence to get across to people your what or your how. And for me, it's invaluable because they'll see my name, profile picture, and then this is the first sentence they'll read about why I'm here, why I'm showing up, and what I'm trying to achieve here. So mine is something along the lines of on a mission with my dad to build the biggest and tastiest pizza brand in the world. So that's your what, and a bit about your mission or vision. So really useful sentence, worth taking a bit of time to think about that, getting people's advice. Really powerful sentence, can make a big impact to your profile and adds a lot of personality quite quickly. Okay, so we've done headline. Right. Hands up if everyone understands what I mean by the summary on their profile in the about section, if that helps. Good, good. Got a few nods and hands up. Okay, so again, not to be ignored. The summary is probably the next step. So you've done your sentence to explain your what. The summary is probably the how and the why, to really simplify it down to a few words. So again, incredibly important. It's about 40 words written in the first person typically. You want to break it down into short sentences and paragraphs. And again, this is a chance to add a bit more about who you are, your background, your company, your services, what you're trying to achieve. So if people like what they see or they're really interested, this is probably their next stop to find out more about you. So not to be ignored, highly recommend doing it and spending a little bit of time making sure it sounds like you and it's written in the proper tone of voice that suits you. And then last but not least, it's probably massively underutilized, but this is your work experience, career history on your profile. So final show of hands if anyone is comfortable that their work experience is up to date on their LinkedIn profile. Okay. So we've got, yeah, a few yeses and a few no's. So yeah, again, really interesting. When I've talked to the LinkedIn team, members with an up-to-date career history can get 5 times more connection requests and up to 8 times more profile views. So the numbers are pretty staggering. And I always think that they're pretty good incentives to get that stuff up to date. So yeah, they're the basics. If you've got any questions, just save them to the second half. But I'd say if you can get all of those up to date, with proper decent amount of personality, sounds like you, then I think you're going to make a huge difference very quickly. I think all of that you can do in under an hour, and it's going to have a lasting impact on your connections and your overall goals on LinkedIn. So yeah, second part, once you're comfortable with the basics, I'm going to try and cover as much of the system to LinkedIn, or the approach, as possible, without going into too much detail, because there's a lot there to unpack. So for the system, I think for me, when I started taking it really seriously about 2 years ago, this is absolutely key. You need to be really clear with yourself on what you want to achieve from LinkedIn, because there's no point going into it not appreciating or being clear with yourself about what you want to get out of it at the end. What's the end goal? So for me personally, I understood that we were frustrated and not getting a lot of responses from buyers within the retail supermarket world, but also wholesale, export. And these were all the decision makers that were going to help us grow our company, get pizzas onto shelves. They were all spending their time on LinkedIn. I can see they're on there. They all have profiles, they're active. And at the same time, I was struggling to get them through any other means. So emails, phone calls, turning up at head office with a sign in my hand. So I knew that LinkedIn was the right place to be for me to grow the business. And I knew that I had to take it very seriously and create a very effective system to build my profile for them to take me more seriously and to notice me more frequently. So that was my end goal: to get noticed, get responses by the buyers, build up a decent, exciting profile that's going to get their attention and get them talking about us in Tesco or Sainsbury's head office. I appreciate all of you will have very different end goals. You may not be too clear about what they are at the moment, but it's good to get thinking about what you want to get out of LinkedIn, even if it's within a year or 6 months. I think that's still really useful to look at it fairly regularly. So every start of the year, I write down some goals I want to achieve from LinkedIn, hitting certain numbers, but also getting face-to-face meetings with 3 or 4 buyers in 2025. So really clear, focused goals will help you commit to your LinkedIn profile. So probably the most important thing, biggest piece of advice today, if I'm going to leave you with anything, I would say consistency is key above everything else. From my learnings over the years and talking to other people who are spending a lot of time on LinkedIn and seeing the benefits, it's probably the thing that comes up the most. So what I mean by consistency is showing up on a daily or weekly or monthly basis, and not just forgetting about it. So even if you say to yourself, I'm only going to post once a month, it's doing that consistently over a year. And it's really easy to let that go and let it slide. And I used to do it repeatedly, but once you have a more robust system in place, it's much harder to let these things slide. So consistency is key. That's going to be one of the strongest advantages you'll have to building up your profile and achieving whatever goals you have through LinkedIn. For me, it was posting weekly without fail. And I've now upped that to 3 to 4 times a week, which I'll talk about in a minute. So after consistency, my advice would be find an approach to LinkedIn that works for you. When I've talked to people and given them advice about LinkedIn before, it really does depend on how much time you have to give it. I don't want you to set yourself unrealistic, unachievable goals around LinkedIn. And if you say, I'm going to post every day, spend an hour on it 5 days a week, and you know you're too busy to keep that up, and you're going to put too much pressure on yourself and fail, then I'd say, actually just lower your expectations, and it's okay to set smaller, more manageable, achievable goals, and then work your way up over time, which is what I did. So even if it's, I'm going to post once a week or spend an hour a week on LinkedIn, that consistency over months and years will compound, and you'll see the benefits over time. So personally, I began by saying to myself 2 years ago or so, I'm going to post 2 times a week. And I committed to that. I wrote it on my wall, didn't let myself down unless I was ill or on holiday. And that's when I really started getting excited by the growth I was seeing on my profile and the reach of the posts. I then, once I was comfortable with that, increased it to 3 times a week. And at the moment, I'm now on 4 times a week. So I'm not too hard on myself. If I have a week where I've dropped it to 3, that just encourages me the following week to get back up to 4 again. It's all about kind of finding healthy balance of competition with yourself and / holding yourself accountable. Posting now, you can get into the science of this and go down a rabbit hole, but generally, without going into too much detail, posting in the morning versus in the PM is generally better before lunch. This seems to change. You can go and do your own research. This seems to change over time, but generally posting in the morning and understanding where your connections and your followers live. So it sounds silly, but a lot of my connections are over in America. So it's just being conscious of that when you're posting throughout the week. Generally, the morning's better. I'd always advise against posting at the weekend. I see it and I try and ignore it. I think it's generally bad practice, and most people will be on there Monday to Friday. Yeah, but compared to consistency, I don't think it's as important. For me, it's all about that regular commitment to posting over time. Okay, so then probably the next step for me is a slightly off the wall one that you may not have heard before, but I'm a big believer in that you get back what you put out there. And by that, I mean, it's just really valuable to be nice and be a kind person on LinkedIn, because ultimately these are all connections. These are all real people, apart from the bots, obviously. But one of the first sort of principles I committed to was just to build genuinely meaningful, positive relationships in our sector, which is the plant-based food and drink world. And rather than just going after numbers, I want thousands and thousands of meaningless connections. I focused on building 10 to 100 really valuable core connections on LinkedIn. And these are people who I support and champion on a regular basis. And then in return, I'm finding that they're actually quite happy to do the same back to me, which is really helping me reach new people, but also making sure they're relevant to my network. So there's a lot to be said for just being really nice and positive on LinkedIn. It's very easy to be negative and to criticize and condemn people, but I always find consistently being positive and rewarding people who are doing well and achieving things is much more effective to get to helping you achieve your goals. And I guess just to double down on that, what I mean by that is spending time within, once you've got your system or your approach and you say to yourself, I'm happy to commit 2 or 3 times a week and spend 1 hour, 2 hours a week max on LinkedIn. That's all the time I have, but I can do it every week without fail. Then I would say actually be clear with yourself how much of that time you want to allocate to building up those meaningful relationships. So most of that time I would recommend putting towards your own content, which is the third part of this talk. But probably for me, actually 30–40% of that time I spend on a weekly basis is supporting those connections within my network. So what that actually looks like is 20 minutes in the morning, I'll wake up, go on LinkedIn, and probably the first 10 or 15 posts that from people in my network or people I'm trying to connect with and build relationships with, I'll spend time reading their posts, meaningful comments. I'll engage with their content, not just a yes or like this or a smiley face, but try and actually stimulate some healthy discussion or or offer them some really positive feedback, or connect them with relevant people to help them. And that really does come back full circle. So there are probably 10 people that I could name in my network who are other founders within the food and drink space in the UK. And I make sure to spend time helping them achieve their goals through LinkedIn, and actually have that as part of my approach. And I've found that over the last year, by doing that, they feel inclined, they want to return the favor, and they're also really well connected. And they, more often than not, they'll put me in touch with someone, and it'll be really valuable to our business. So yeah, just wanted to make a point there that all of these connections are real people, and they all have their own goals and visions. And if you can help them along the way, more often than not, they're going to want to return the favor, probably when you need it most. So yeah, I hope you found the sort of second part of that useful. And once you've got an idea in your head of a system, I don't want it to be too rigid or unrealistic. I think set yourself small, manageable goals, and then just push them and increase them. A bit like Dave would talk about doing in the gym, I guess. It's all about repeating and then increasing the weight on those exercises over time. And once you're comfortable and you're allocating yourself some time on LinkedIn every day or every week, it then gets to the juicy bit, the content. So this is probably the biggest area of research and on LinkedIn, and also the questions I get asked the most around content. So I'm going to try and whiz through some of the most important and valuable lessons I've learned, but hopefully there'll be plenty of time in the questions. So yeah, when I talk to LinkedIn about content, really interestingly, they have generally two frameworks for when you're posting. The first one is two questions is how they frame it. So framework one for your content: how does it help people do their jobs better or develop their careers? So if you can write this down or have a think about it whenever you're coming to writing content, hopefully it will fall into one of these frameworks. So how does it help people do their jobs better or develop their careers? Or how does it help people understand their industry or trends within their sector? So they're the two questions that LinkedIn thinks you should ask yourself when you're posting content, which was really interesting when I thought about it. And actually, yes, most of the time I post content, it falls into one of those two frameworks. It's just really useful to bear those in mind. Now, LinkedIn, this is one of the things I did think that they did very well, was they break their content down into 3 content pillars. And I can share this with you guys. I've got a really useful PDF if you don't want to take notes. So this is how I live my LinkedIn life, is through these 3 content pillars once I've got a decent framework in place for myself. So I'll just quickly run through these. I know we could spend a lot of time on these. So number 1 is reactive content, pillar number 1. So what I mean by reactive is you're posting commentary based on industry trends and news. So this is relevant, up to date breaking news, which I see Dave post about a lot from his sector. And this is really important to regularly post, because this is the content that's up to date, it's breaking news, and if other people haven't seen or read it before, then they're going to be very likely to read your post and engage with it and potentially even share it, which often is the best case scenario. So when I look at these pillars, I try and break down my posting pattern to make sure I'm including all 3 of these pillars consistently. So I try and do a reactive post once or twice a week. For you guys, it may just be once or twice a month. But really important. So for us within the food sector, there's often new food trends, and it's really important for us to cover that. Within the plant-based sector, it moves very quickly. It's a very young subsector within food. So there's lots of news around health, new scientific research, new products, innovation, new launches. So there's lots of really juicy content there to post about. And if someone else hasn't posted about it yet, that could be one of your first viral posts. Second pillar is personal. So this is my favorite. So this is probably the most underutilized content across LinkedIn that I see every day. So personal is anything about your own journey, from your learnings to your mistakes, and how it can benefit your connections and your community. So I try and do this once or twice a week. me and Mike building a food business from scratch. We've made plenty of mistakes along the way. We've come across a huge number of challenges, and these are actually the most interesting pieces of content that I write, and this is what people respond to and react to the most, because the more you open up about the personal stuff, the more people feel like they have built a genuine, meaningful relationship and connection with you, and they're much more likely to engage with you going forwards, and they're much more likely to want to support you and help you along the way. So personal, can include, like I said, challenges, lessons, learnings, but also, a bit about yourself, how you got into your job, what led you down this career path, and even, are you doing a crazy fitness challenge this year, raising money for charity? Most people think that nobody cares about their personal stuff, but the truth is, actually, this is the most interesting stuff. We're all inherently quite nosy. It's human nature to be quite nosy and to see what other people are doing behind the scenes, not just in their work life. So I would really strongly encourage you to think, if anything, today about posting more and sharing more about the personal side of your life. And I'm not telling you to do anything you're not comfortable with. And again, for me, I gradually started sharing more and more. And then I saw how people reacted and responded and how well the content did. And that's the only reason I now post more and more about our challenges, our mistakes, how we got into building a vegan pizza company. And the why behind it all is what people really connect with. So last pillar is business. So we've done reactive, we've done personal. So business sounds straightforward. This is how to do a job better, or how to master or enhance a skill within your industry. So for us, I actually ask other founders within the food sector top tips and tricks, and then I shine a founder spotlight once a month or so on these other people within the industry, and actually try and share their knowledge rather than always posting about my own. So that's a little tip there, is that actually your own content doesn't have to always come from you. You can be influenced by, include other people within your sector who you really admire or you love what they're doing. More often than not, if you ask them if they're happy for you to post about them and share some tips or tricks, they're going to say yes, because it helps them build their profile and increases their reach. And then, appreciate, I'm trying to cover a lot of ground here, Dave. So tell me when I'm running close to time. But yeah, so I mean, there's some of the basics around the content. If I've got time, I'm going to talk through how I would structure the perfect post. So this is actually a bit more about the application itself rather than the framework and the principles. So some of the most, I'll try and cover some of the most common mistakes I see, and also reflect what some of the posts that have gone really well for me over the years. So your opening should always be 1 or 2 lines. Spend almost as much time on the first line or 2 on a post as you read the rest of the content, because if people don't like that opening line, they're not going to keep reading. So this is really important stuff. It's probably similar to what journalists get told, and there's a reason why that first line is so important. So make sure it's really punchy, it sets the scene, and it makes it really clear. You can understand from that first sentence or 2 what your post is going to be about and what's it going to involve. And then I would go very quickly into, once you've opened, I would then describe. So it's then expanding, and this is the meat of the post. So this gets straight to the point. I try and structure content around a line or 2 at the top, space, and then 2, 3, 4 paragraphs or bullet points, and then try and finish it with a response, which is a question, trying to pull people in at the end. So I appreciate I've whizzed through that, and this doesn't apply to every post, but I would say probably it's a pretty safe sort of guideline for 95% of the content out there. So just to run through it, I would start a post with a sentence or two, trying to get straight to the point, pull people in. Often it's referred to as a hook. So I try and start my posts often with a question, because that usually tickles people's curiosity. And if you can ask a question that they think they can answer, or that they have a sort of vested interest in, you're really likely to keep them interested. So an example of what I think is a really good hook would be something like, have you ever seen a vegan pizza brand in your local supermarket like this before? So specific to that person, they all shop at a supermarket. Have they seen this pizza brand before? And then I would straight away go into the meat of the post. So like I said, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs, all about what it is, the message you're trying to get across. Try and round it up very quickly at the end with a question, so that you're leaving people with another hook to try and get them back in, to stimulate a bit of a healthy discussion or debate. So if you guys want to talk a bit more about the actual structure of content, we can cover that in the questions. But they would be the sort of 4 basic principles. So an opening, the meat, then I'd say it's the inquiring questions. And then to finish off, it would be actually within the comments themselves, try and tag relevant people. So often I'll post and I'll tag Mike, my dad and business partner, and I'll say, Mike, what do you think about this? And I'll stimulate a bit of discussion, which really helps the algorithms. And as soon as people comment themselves, then it's really important to be active, respond as quick as you can, and try and keep those conversations going as long as possible. And then I tend to ask myself a sort of final question on content. When I've structured it, got it all ready to post, I usually ask myself, does this sound like me? Does it sound authentic? And does it make people feel anything? Does it sort of stimulate an emotive response? And if it doesn't do those things, then I will go back, run through it again, and make sure it achieves those. You want your post to have personality, because people engage and respond with real people. You don't want it to sound too much like it's been really well rehearsed or copied and pasted. So yeah, I think those 2 questions go a really long way. Does it make people feel something? Does it have personality, or does it sound like me? Is it authentic? Have I got any more time, Dave, to go through content, or do we want to wrap it up to questions? I've got a few more if they're...
Just do a little bit on content, and then we'll... I've certainly got 3 questions.
Excellent.
So.
Okay, let's look at... too much I want to talk about. So the importance of personality. Why is personality important? It's because stories are what people remember. So I'm not saying every one of your posts should fit into the pillar of personal, but I think even when you're posting the reactive or the business content, I think it's absolutely critical to make sure there is some element of your personality in there. So whether that's how you structure a post, how you the words you use, the tone of voice, or even, it sounds really simple, but I always use, I'm a fan of emojis. I think they're really powerful in content as a way of standing out amongst a crowd of really text-heavy content. So breaking stuff up with emojis sounds almost childish, but this is the world we live in. It's full of emojis, and LinkedIn probably is a place where you can actually get really good cut through by using really powerful emojis to get your point across more effectively. And then, but even bullet points. So most of my posts, I'm a massive fan of bullet points, and this helps people digest the content. But also, I like to think they then recognise it's one of your posts, because it fits into something that you would usually do. I would say with mine, I try and consciously try and be fun, light-hearted, fairly positive most of the time, and I try to stimulate healthy debates around plant-based diets and veganism. So it's always important to be aware of the sector you're working in, the industry, your role in it, and then think about how your personality, you know, can be used to your advantage. So if you're in the leisure sector and you're really into specific sports, then you know, how can you incorporate that into your posts about you know, your reactive posts about what's happening in the industry? You know, can you finish off things by saying how it ties into the sport that you're obsessed with, or how it ties into, you know, a charity event that you're running, and just try and add that little, you know, that little 1-2% of your own personality to each post will help it really stand out, but also help people identify it and feel like they're building that meaningful connection with you. So yeah, I didn't want to not talk about personality because it is, for me, really, really important. And one of my, I think, to be honest, that rounds it up really nicely. And I'll finish with one of my top tricks, which is something that LinkedIn themselves talk about a lot. So when you guys will have quite a lot of industry events, I should imagine, and we do as well. And one of the sort of simplest, most effective ways to make the most of your profile is to use the LinkedIn hashtag. So have any of you ever been at an event and opened up, you've met someone, you've connected with someone, potentially there's you know, a deal to be done, and you've opened up your LinkedIn app in front of them to try and connect, and it's taken, has anyone done this and managed to find the LinkedIn hashtag before, or knows what I'm talking about? Good, good. If you'd all said yes, then I wouldn't have needed to show you. So take a little bit of time after this, go on the LinkedIn app on your phone if you do have it. If not, really recommend it. And I actually now use this at every event I go to, and it's saved me so much time over the years. So if you go to the LinkedIn app and open it up, there's a home button in the bottom left corner. If you press search on, once you've gone on the home button, if you press search, a little square appears in the top right when you're searching, and then you press on that, and it opens up a personalized hashtag, which is unique to your LinkedIn profile. I'm going to very bravely try and do this right now. Okay, here we go. So I've just opened up, you found it, Dave, you beat me to it. So I've just opened up LinkedIn, home button down bottom left, press that, search button at the top, search bar, and then hopefully you guys can see this, right there, top right, there's a small square. If you click that, you've got your personalized LinkedIn QR code. You can save it to photos to make it easier. You can share it on WhatsApp or other apps and platforms. And this has become my new business card. And it's brilliant because if you've spent all of this time doing what we've just talked about on LinkedIn, and you're investing heavily into your profile, you want to utilize it. You know, you want to make the most of it. So open this up, take a picture of it, save it when you're going to events. And it's brilliant. People take a picture of it, takes them straight to your profile. You've just updated your header, your banner, your career history. It's looking fantastic. You're posting regularly. They see all of this, and it's full circle. So yeah, that's one of my favorite tips for LinkedIn for events. And I know very briefly, I think it was yourself, Roland, talked about sustainability. It's a great angle to say, I don't do business cards anymore. I've gone paperless. Let's connect using my QR code. I think that's a really powerful message. So yeah, I wanted to finish on that because I use it at every event, and I think it's really powerful. So yeah, hopefully, I appreciate that was a pretty rapid sort of overview of LinkedIn, and there's a lot of different topics to cover. So hopefully I've managed to sort of pick up on some of the basics, but also gone into a bit more detail so that you guys can get the most out of LinkedIn very quickly.
Brilliant, Joe. Thank you. I've got a few questions, but I want to open it to the floor first. See if anybody else.
Yeah, of course.
Anything. Is there anybody got a question? Got a thumbs up from Matthew. Okay, so go on, Darren. You got a question?
But I don't have a question, but I just wanted to comment on. I found that really useful. I can't believe how much I underutilized LinkedIn. I mean, using it as a business card, I think, is one I'm definitely going to be doing now. Absolutely. Thank
Excellent.
you.
I love to
Thank
hear it.
you.
Consistency is key.
Darren, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, thanks. So, Joe, I thought that was fantastic and really helpful. Some common sense things, but also the way you structured it was really clear and gets you thinking to a degree. I mean, it depends on to a degree whether you've just used it for personal reasons and your profile and stuff, or whether you're doing it very practically from a business viewpoint as well. So, but yeah, you see it more and more, and I do use LinkedIn, but I don't post a lot. I'm quite shy in that respect. So, but how you can utilize it from a business perspective is clearly a good feature. I'm interested to ask and see your answer, but how tangibly has it helped you in terms of what you've done with your business?
Oh yeah, sorry. Have you finished, Aaron? There's a bit of a
Yeah.
delay with the video. Oh, cool. I couldn't have. I couldn't have asked for a better question, to be honest, Aaron. I was hoping someone would ask that. So, yeah, in the last 2 years, we've significantly grown our business. We had a couple of tough years, but not that it's entirely down to me spending more time and having some success on LinkedIn. But I guess tangible benefits, aside from building up a incredibly valuable network and reaching hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people over the last few years with our brand and with our product. What I do know we've achieved is that I've managed to get face-to-face meetings with the buyers at Tesco, Sainsbury's, Co-op, and Morrison's through my LinkedIn. So for us, these are the biggest industry buyers and the ones that we'd want to go after more than anyone else. And these deals are worth hundreds of thousands to us in revenue. So we did manage to lock down Morrison's this year. We won a listing in 315 stores with one SKU, so one pizza, and that launched in October. And the other meetings were at various stages with the buyers, but pretty much all of them have now come through LinkedIn, which is when I don't pay for we didn't talk about premium versus standard LinkedIn. I have tried premium and it costs quite a lot for what I don't see as too many benefits. So I now use just standard LinkedIn. So to think it only costs me time, say an hour a day max, if I've got those listings which are worth hundreds of thousands in revenue out of it, that's a pretty incredible benefit, which is tangible. So yeah, and it's great because the buyers explicitly say to us, we found you on LinkedIn, we saw your profile, it's in the notes, and now we've got these listings. So yeah, I couldn't recommend it for people enough.
And that's versus other mediums, you'd say that's been more powerful.
Absolutely, yeah. For many years, the traditional route for us to reach buyers is through email and industry events, trade events. But we've seen increasingly over the years, buyers just get harassed by hundreds of suppliers, and so they don't attend our events within the food world. They don't attend these as much as they used to meet suppliers anymore. And also post-COVID, remote working, a lot of these buyers now only go to their head office a day or two a week. Most of the time they're working is at home. So it's really hard for us to get in front of them in person. And they just get bombarded by emails. Everyone's trying to sell them everything. So I found that LinkedIn is at the moment my most effective way of getting in front of relevant buyers, because we can get a lot more personality across. And it does go back to that profile. A lot of it's about posting consistently and having a good audience on there. But if the buyer sees a post or they've heard your name, then they'll often go onto your LinkedIn without telling you and have a little look. And if everything's up to date and everything ticks their boxes, then they'll follow up with an email, and suddenly you're in front of them that way.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks.
I'll reinforce that, Darren. So ActiveNet has been around for 10 years. We generate 300 delegates a year purely through LinkedIn. And this week, just by commenting on people's posts that I don't have a connection with, getting a connection with them, and then personally messaging them, I've got 4 delegates this week that I've never met before, just through commenting on their post on LinkedIn, connecting with them, sending them a personalized message, following up with conversation, either email or phone. And I've done 4 delegates. So we don't spend money on advertising for ActiveNet. It's purely done through LinkedIn. You've answered one of my questions, Joe, which was about premium, because I've looked the same and I can't work out why I'm spending that much money with LinkedIn. I can't see the value, although they have started shading out the stalkers, the people who are looking at your account on my system now. I can't see who they are. So that, I think, is their push to make me go to premium, because I can see who's been looking at my profile, but that's by the by. Do you have any insight on the verification where it says add verification on your profile? Add a verification badge. What's that about? Do you know?
Yeah, I must admit, it's not an area I'm too familiar with. I get the notifications quite a lot, and I've never seen the value. I've never heard anyone in our industry talk about it. I think it's like when everyone tried to get the blue tick on Instagram when that was emerging. And for some people it may be really relevant, but for me, certainly, I've not heard anyone else talk about the benefits of it.
Yeah. Okay, fine. And then my last bit is we play a boosting game, which I know you know about. So those of you, we have friends in the sectors that we all have a WhatsApp group. We bung our post onto the WhatsApp group. Everybody likes and comments on it early. It boosts it up other people's timelines. So we've got little tools within our teams that just help that posting regime and help that reach, as it were. But what I would say, and the reason we've done this from a business and a personal point of view, is I think the personal insights that you have as individuals are really powerful for you as an individual, but also for your business. And the work we're all doing now to move into that much more holistic, well-being, health-related field, this is how we're going to build those connections, and this is how we're going to build trust as a business, making sure that we're connecting with those organizations in our localities that are delivering some form of movement, physical activity, etc. And anything we can do now will always help when the opportunity arises. So building that relationship, building that trust, and LinkedIn can really help us to do that. And I think, Joe, I don't want to paraphrase what you've been doing, but that ultimately is what you've been doing. You've been building trust in who you are as a business and who you are as an individual. So when the opportunity arises, you've already opened the door. You're not trying to ring the doorbell and get somebody to open the door. And I think that bit is us investing in our future and thinking about how we can do that in a different way.
Yeah, no, perfectly said, Dave. We should have been a double act. Yeah, and I would just add that one of my final points in my notes was really similar to that people remember stories and people connect with other people better than any logo or company or color scheme. And that's why, we have a One Planet Pizza profile on LinkedIn that doesn't have anywhere near as many followers or impressions as my personal profile. So I would always just stress that it's important not to underestimate how powerful you are as an individual behind a company or service or organization. It's those real life people that other people relate and connect with.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Has anybody got any other questions that they'd like to ask? Darren?
How does, Joe, do you have an angle on how AI is influencing LinkedIn?
Yeah, I'm very slow to AI, Darren. I'm a bit reluctant to take it on because of a lot of what I've said about real people. It comes back to that. And really interestingly, I had an email a few weeks back from a sort of a very well-respected person within our industry, and they had written an email response to quite a few questions I put out there with an AI bot of some sort. And the only way I saw was that in their response it had reply, response number 1, response number 2, and then 2 very similar answers in their response. And it actually, for me, it really stuck with me, because I thought, that's one of the most impersonal things I've ever received from someone who I've met and know quite well, and it really stayed with me. And I thought, I never want to do that to anyone else in my industry, because it breaks that trust that you talk about, Dave. And that's, you know, that's where you'll build these really important relationships with people in your sector or industry. So I'm very reluctant to use AI. I know it's incredibly important and useful, and we can't escape it. I know a lot of people use AI to structure their posts, and I'm very hesitant to do that, because I think people will always, or at least now, see through that, and it does start to impact that trust you have with your connections on LinkedIn. So I avoid it for posting content. Probably in the future will no doubt use it to help me with my structure, my reminders, my schedule, things like that. But I would always steer away from it for anything that involves, building real relationships.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you.
It is a really good point, Darren. As a business, we've used the AI piece to construct stuff, because obviously it learns from previous posts, so it has a piece of work on that. I would never do it from private. And the other side of that is we've just employed an AI assistant for ActiveNet, and you realize very quickly it's about the level of training you give it. It's just like a normal employee. So, how do you orientate? How do you align it to your mission, vision, and values? How do you give it the insight it needs in order to answer stuff? And then how do you constantly review the training? And it's just like having a normal employee. It's just the employee operates 24/7 and incredibly quickly. The pace of response is just unreal with the AI assistant we're using. It's been a really interesting journey, but you do have to look at it as a new employee and put in place all of those things you would have to do with a new employee. And I think some people don't really get that, which is why you probably get some of the responses Joe is talking about there. So
yeah, it takes a lot of effort and understanding, doesn't it, Dave? And it definitely not as fun at the Christmas party as well.
Well, I'm not so sure. So our AI assistant has been asked, what's my favorite song? What do I perform at karaoke? What's my favorite sport? So people have been taking the mick out of our AI assistant, but that's absolutely fine, because they're interacting with it, and that's all I care.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, anything further? No? Right, brilliant. Joe, thank you so much for your time. Really good to see you. I'm hoping everybody goes out and now buys a One Planet pizza for Christmas, which would be lovely. Joe, take care, mate, and I will see you soon. Have a wonderful Christmas break.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. And do connect with me on LinkedIn as well.
Cheers, Joe. Take care. Tell you bye.
Cheers. Thank you.
Brilliant. Right. Thank you, everybody, for your time and your questions today and interaction. I hope that was useful. I think if we can, just take a couple of those, that business card thing is already in my phone memory. That's fantastic. I didn't realize it did that. And by the way, you can also use it to scan other people. So you've got a scan button, so you can scan others when they show you yours. So that links in straight away, which is brilliant. We got a question. We had a piece just beforehand, and we said I was going to try and get Joe Talbot along from the RLSS to have a conversation with us. Is there anybody else that you'd like me to look at in the new year to bring along? No.
I've been wanting to ask this question: what the other guys are doing around being able to access funding, grants, and funding for sports and activities and health and well-being stuff. It's one area that I know that we're weak at.
Okay. Has anybody got? Sorry, go on, Alexis.
Funnily enough, something just come to mind now that Roland's mentioned that. We're looking to try and set up a charitable arm of the company that might be able to then lever in additional funding. At the minute, our turnover is prohibitive to most grant funders, even if it's just £10,000, £15,000. You only need those small pots of money to make a real big difference. So some of my team have just been pulling together a bit of work. I mean, obviously, with the agency model, that might change the format of the status of our company as well. But having this separate arm, no staff, no costs, particularly, but being able to lever that in. So it's a piece of work that we're going through at the moment.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Alexis. I'm not sure of individuals that will be able to support us on that, but I'm prepared to do a dig and have a conversation with a few of my contacts to see if anybody can give us an idea around A, what funds are out there, what we can access, and B, what are the best vehicles in order to access that funding, Alexis. Alexis, that makes sense. Can anybody answer Roland's first question? Has anybody been successful on any grant funding in the recent years?
I mean, just purely from where we are, then we have some public health funding and some specific NHS funding for, we have what we call an Activity for Life program, which is based on GP referral, based on certain metrics, in terms of post or preventative health measures. So that